Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dionne Joyner-Weems. I'm always the one that has the technical difficulties, unfortunately. I am the founder and CEO of Audacity Group, which is a brand shop for bold ideas. But I'm here in the capacity today as the chair of Hack Baltimore, which I have the honor to do alongside Dalali Jarasa, who is the CEO of Fearless, a tech firm with a soul in Baltimore. And we're really looking forward to sharing with you this information. Laura Dress is my colleague from Fearless, and she's actually designing the architecture behind the design thinking. So I know that you're really going to enjoy this, her presentation. So with that, I will go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so we're talking to Sharice about this, and it's like, it's really interesting to be sharing a case study on something that you're literally in the middle of. This civic hacking, Hack Baltimore, has been a year and a half in the making, and it's constantly evolving. We have constantly had to make pivots, but I think that that's what comes with a movement. Next slide. Sharice, you're really good at this. Thank you so much. So, the next slide. Thank you. All right, so if I were to ask everyone out there who is listening to me right now, what is civic hacking? You would probably give the same wide-eye looks that I get here. But it really is simple. Civic hacking, it isn't a skill set, right? It's a mindset. It's being able to recognize a problem in your community, and then you create what's necessary to address that challenge with whatever it is that you have, you know, your talent, your gifts, your blessings, your resources, and you create a solution that makes life better for those in your community. So you're a problem solver. That's a civic hacker, someone who just cares. So everyone that's watching this today, I think just by being in the room, we can assume that you are a civic hacker. So welcome. Welcome to Civic Hackers Unite. Next slide. All right. I get a chance to introduce you to my home, my city. This is very personal to me. I'm born and raised in West Baltimore. So to really understand what Hack Baltimore is, we first need to start with who Baltimore is. And to also understand that the Baltimore that I'm describing to you, understanding that this has been a year and a half in the making, it's different today. COVID, I think many people across many destinations have felt the impact of COVID, and it has changed our landscape completely here in Baltimore and across the world. But keeping the things in perspective, COVID honestly magnified, it simply magnified systemic challenges that people like you, me, those in the community have been grappling with for decades, right? And it's unfortunate that in times of crisis, but we know that's usually how it goes. In times of crisis, you're able to step back, and it's actually presented an opportunity for us to get things right the next time, right? So that you're prepared. So with that being said, just to understand, Baltimore, I often tell people it's a perfect representation of the world. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard a question. Is there a question?
No questions.
All right, keeping it flowing. So it's interesting in looking at my slide here. In Baltimore, I often tell people when we're talking, when they find out where I'm from, it's, you know, they're looking for the next few words. And the next few words are Baltimore is a perfect representation of the world. The world's ingenuity, as well as its very slow pace towards change. In a city with over 500,000 residents here, 68% of them are African American Hispanic. And when you look at other major urban cities like Baltimore, you can see that we're always forward progressing, but we're constantly dealing with the compounding issues that come with the struggles within race, diversity, and inclusion. And then having to take a step back, again, looking at COVID, BC, before COVID, Baltimore was already being outspent from a market standpoint by our neighbors, right? So you look at DC, Philly, and why is that important? Bad news travels fast, and we joke that in Baltimore, it travels even faster. And all you have is your name, right? All you have is your story. And it's the responsibility, just to share previously, I had a previous life as the vice president of marketing for Baltimore. So to really understand from a tourism standpoint, everyone finds themselves sitting through Zoom, trying to find out what we're going to do for our restaurants, our hotels. I know here in Baltimore, it's a main economic generator for us. It's up to 80,000 jobs, and the amount of people that lost their jobs and the impact of this is monumental. So it's kind of strange to say that our competing destinations are outspending us by 7 times and talking about the millions, but also putting perspective of where we are now. But I digress, and I do not lose hope, and I hope that you don't either. But keeping the storytelling in mind, because that's something that will never go away. We understood in looking at this information that between the age of, our demographic is 35 to 45, and you will find that those between 30 and 50-ish, they rely on online and TV to gather their news. Okay, so that's really important to understand that, you know, with Instagram, for example, 1 billion people use Instagram. 500 million of them use it every day. So again, 1 billion people use Instagram monthly, while 5 million use it every day. So what we understand is that it is really in the hands of your community. It's really in the hands of the people of your city. They control the narrative. It's not a dictate out, it's what they feel in, and that's the story that you share externally. So that's something to keep in mind. Next slide. Okay. So I say that's something to keep in mind with storytelling, specifically from Baltimore's standpoint and how Hack Baltimore was birthed, is that when you look at the stats in one breath, right? So if we dive in here, in one breath, you can say that over 24% of the residents, the people living in our city, are living below the poverty line. You can also say, you know, in 2019, we unfortunately hit 248 homicides, right? That is a reality. But then you can also point to the fact that Baltimore is still the 8th largest destination for millennials coming into the country. Baltimore continues to experience this growth. When we are able to look at top 5, Baltimore ranks top 5 for cities for startups, and has been a site for 1 billion in venture capital and . The point is, for every negative, there is always a positive. So how are we able to balance the story? It's unfortunate. I'm a product of the Baltimore City school system. And when you look at the Baltimore City school system, 80% of the children in our system are African American. And when you're looking at the stats of the types of the infrastructure of the schools, time has been lost in schools. You know, during the summer, you don't have the AC to keep keep your degrees under 90. During the winter, you don't have heat. And when you take a step back and really understand the impact of this, 5 in every 6 hours of school time is lost because of this. That means that children have lost over 660,000 hours in learning. I'm gonna pause there because that is staggering. And it was one of those things, it was Delali's question that actually brought me on board for this project of why is it understanding all of the systemic challenges that we face, understanding that, you know, Baltimore is a college town. We're known for the cyber security and the professional teams, that we're known for 20% of the world's top influencers in vaccine right here in Baltimore. We know all of these things, but why is it during the winter, we can't simply get our children heat, and during the summer, we can't simply get them AC? Why is that? So that's when, and next slide, understanding how this is how Hack Baltimore was born. It was actually taking the challenges that Baltimore, oh, next slide, please. Thank you. So it's actually in looking at both sides of a destination. That's where Hack Baltimore was born, out of the challenges. Right now across the world, I'm not a techie. Delali knows that, make it really clear. Marketing, storytelling, that brand building, that has always been my lane. But to also understand that Baltimore has always had, it needed to solve the problems that occur, right? We have the power to do this. Everyone in your destination in Montgomery has the power to address the challenges that they see in their communities daily. So why can't we make this a mindset? So that's where the nonprofit Hack Baltimore was born. We say that a challenge is just an opportunity being shy. So let's get to know it, right? It's built off of 3 main principles. The first is that we're trying to build a civic-tech solutions for the issues that are pressing Baltimore currently. Of course, currently changes because of COVID, because everyone is dealing with that current challenge. But it's also, how do we break down the silos? I'm sure that this is not unique to Baltimore, but within communities, trying to get that collaboration, you know, from your grassroots organizations, your nonprofits, the corporate, the private communities, city government, you know, all of this mix. Sometimes it can be difficult to get each other to connect, that head to head. And back to the storytelling, we need to elevate the positive stories that are happening in our city. If we're waiting for the media to do that for us, we'll be waiting a very long time. Coming out of the ad agency world, which I've talked to Sharice about, I was told by a mentor that if it bleeds, it leads. And that was like his favorite statement: if it bleeds, it leads. And I thought that was horrific until I realized that it's true. You know, scandal is what gets people's attention, but the positive work, the sincere work that comes from the heart has to fight through. But through social media, you actually get the power to control that narrative. And that's where we saw the opportunity. Research shows that 68% of millennials, they're looking to make a positive difference in the world. But that's not just millennials. That's you and I'm sure. 81% of them noted that successful businesses need to have a genuine purpose. 78% believe that the values of their employers need to match their own. And big one here, more than 1/3 define success as doing work that provides a positive impact on your society. You put all of that together, and what you have are civic hackers, people that want to make a difference. And with that being the case, if people can travel all over the world to just fix problems for fun, then boy, do we have some challenges for you here. So that's where Hack Baltimore was born. Next slide. Oh my goodness. So this is fun. So how do you coordinate? Like I said, Baltimore is over 500,000 residents, all with different challenges. How do you track this? And that's where that marriage, the marriage of civic tech comes to life. Working with one of our local firms, again, partnership. How do you work across the street before you start going outside of your city, right? Local web firm created the website for Hack Baltimore, but more importantly, this is their idea portal. And I was so blown by this. The idea portal actually is like a city backlog. So it allows you to track what the public is facing, and it lets you capture those concerns so that you're able to track, you know, who's responsible for it, when did it come through, who was connected to this. So accountability is needed even more so today. Then from there, those challenges, which are targeted to 6 focus areas. Hack Baltimore focuses on housing, how to address challenges in housing, transportation, public safety, health and education, workforce development, and education. I feel like I said education twice. And if I did, I can't see any of you to know. But if you really look at this, these are the pillars necessary for you to have a healthy destination. So now, once you have all of these challenges gathered, you'll go through a design thinking session. And there is the crux. That's the heart of this Hack Baltimore, right? It's how do you actually shift people's thinking? How do you challenge their assumptions? How do you really understand the challenge from the user's standpoint? So this is where you get to unload. And this is, I cannot wait for Laura to take you through, but it's a hands-on activity-based sessions that you do with the entire community to actually build sustainable solutions. Out of that design thinking, you're actually able to identify, oh, this is the problem. And then the big deal, so what, is actually doing all of that work before you start hacking away, because you want to ensure that it can be sustained. So the idea, oh, look at Sharice, she's got the flow. You're already in sync with me, Sharice. I love it. But it's understanding that we don't need Band-Aids, okay? And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but one thing that was revealed for us in Baltimore with COVID, the digital divide, digital equity became a forefront in that conversation, when not only are parents responsible for taking care of their children. I have 3 beautiful boys under the age of 8. My oldest is 8, my twins are 6. When it then became the responsibility of parents to teach their children, right? To teach their children, that's when you realize the power of having a computer in your home. You understand the power of having Wi-Fi, right? Trying to find a job. And I don't want to get on my soapbox here. It has been quite an emotional week just looking at the world, but to just understand the power of thinking differently. And I cannot wait for Laura to shift our minds.
Well, thank you, Dionne. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Druss, and I work for a software development company called Fearless, and we are partners. We are, I don't know, joined at the hip with Hack Baltimore in our mission to be in service to Baltimore City. When I came in, it had been over a year since the idea of Hack Baltimore came about, and I came in through the lens of, well, how do we do all this? How are we going to deliver all these ideas? At Fearless, I'm overseeing our innovation lab. And with that, it is in my blood. It's in my DNA. I think about how to make a product. It could be a widget, but most cases it's a service, product as a service. And right away, when I listened to the story of Hack Baltimore and the vision and the values, and can combine that with the technology, solving some of these challenges with technology, I understood they had some basic ideas just with the partnership with Fearless about how important design thinking is, how important it is to build a technology in a way that is sustainable and used, and talk to people that have the challenge. So they had the basic idea, but it wasn't turned into a product. It wasn't turned into a service. And that's when I came in and started to really solidify these ideas into what we first called DUBS, design, use, build, and sustain. We do a lot of thinking with the community and with technologists. And together we come up with a way to ideate about what a solution could be, and then talk to the people that could build the solution and make sure that it's feasible to deliver in a way where the people that will benefit from the solution can actually use it and maintain it. And there's the sustainability piece. So this was our core process. This was the core service that we wanted to perform. And I was responsible for getting this understood by volunteers, groups of individuals that were coming together to be in service to the community. And the only way I knew how to do that was to make it into a very reputable, reliable experience that was repeatable each time. So we laid out a basic foundation, and it's called DUBS. And then the story continues with Dionne, and I'll come back again later and tell you the other product that I made.
Thank you, Laura. So the next slide, please. Sharice, can I ask if there are any questions that have come through? Are we moving too fast, too slow? It's so hard not to see people.
It is kind of difficult, but no questions to date, and I think we're right on pace.
Okay, so those that are listening, if you can send a few hand raises, just a few prayers to let us know that you're out there listening, greatly appreciate it. All right, so in doing this, and Laura actually mentioned this, Hack Baltimore was already a year and a half in the making, right? But things happen along the way. A lot of changes. So in Baltimore, we had some power shifts, some leadership shifts with our mayor, and that brought certain media attention. So then that caused a delay with launching, really doing the big launch of Hack Baltimore. Then you're ready to relaunch, get back out there again, and Baltimore was hit by the ransomware. So here it is, and I'm not laughing like it's funny, it's just like hysteria type of thing. So ransomware hits us, and it hits hard. So that, of course, delayed the production of anything at that point. So after time passed, it was time to try this again. Like there is never a good time to do something bold, right? You just got to do it. But we had to do this properly. So our idea was really being clear about the narrative, the story that we're trying to tell. So it was understanding that in rewriting the narratives, what's our goal? What is it we're trying to say? So we let people know that this is about more than you having a tech background. This is about us starting to restore the faith in our institutions. And the only way that we'll be able to do that is if everyone shows up and supports Baltimore with the tools that they already have. So from a brand development, we had the responsibility, one, to really create some excitement. Like you want to feel good about changing the world innovation, imagination. So it really is ejecting that spirit or galvanizing that spirit of problem solving. So you have that. Then second is using the DUB services, this whole idea of big problems, sustainability, how to invest in thinking together, how to push this story forward. Because it's not only changing the way someone thinks, it's introducing new ways that have just never been discussed. It was an opportunity for us to create a movement that was inclusive of not just people, but of information. It's time to share. That's the point of the open data. So being able to actually leverage information that you have to be able to support what's happening over here, and that you're able to take the technologies and learning that we have, and you're able to maintain and make an impact in your space. And then overall, Hack Baltimore acts as a convener. Again, only speaking from our city, it's not about ego when it comes to fixing these challenges. We really need everyone to come to the table. So Hack Baltimore tries to act as that middle. We don't have a dog in a fight. The only person that we want to win is you. The only people that we want to win are the people that want positive change. So with this understanding, we have a new story to tell. And the key message here is that we are bridging the gap between community and the challenges and creating sustainable solutions. So our appeal was going to be really big, that we are doing a call out for problem solvers. But keep in mind, there are some terms like hack, which can be a challenge depending on some groups, because it has so many different meanings, right? I actually did a news interview last week. It was about Civic Hackers Unite, and it was well received in the city. And I looked at Facebook and someone said, great concept, horrible name. I love people. But the point is real, right? We understood that this is going to take not only raising awareness, but education building. But when you're able to change the perspective of no matter what you call it, the idea is that Superman is not coming to save us. It is our responsibility to save ourselves. And if we take a step back and truly look at our community, there are so many more people that have been on the ground doing the work long before. All we're trying to do is to elevate their efforts so that other people can see the resources that they could provide so they could do even more. So we're feeling really good about this, right? And then got hit with a plot twist. Everybody needs a plot twist. But this plot twist, I think, is the best learning for us. In unveiling, the Civic Hackers Unite to the community, we leveraged the idea of being your own superhero. We had these orange capes and a real large gathering. And, by the time the end of the soft launch event, we're feeling good. Delegates, everyone's out. And actually received a message, from some of our stakeholders, and it's just noting that you have to acknowledge the relationship between the communities and technology, specifically in a city, like I said, 68% African-American, so we're talking African-American, Hispanic, or Black and Brown residents, to understand that when you introduce the term technology and innovation and using innovation to address challenges, what a city like Baltimore, who are 5 years after Freddie Gray, what we hear is, oh, you want surveillance, you want tracking. That's your idea of innovation. So that actually made us take a step back, because while we were acknowledging that we are our own superheroes, because of the community, depending on the community that you're engaging with, it could actually be taken as, oh, You are coming in to be our savior. You're coming in to save us. So we realized, Delali and I, we've had some real come to Jesus conversations, that if you're on this path of civic tech and civic hacking, you cannot avoid the conversation related to race and discrimination, the systems that have been put in place. You really have to use the design thinking model to unpack before you start talking about how you're going to move forward. There are some current situations that need to be addressed within that community. So for Hack Baltimore, we actually realized that, okay, we have to ensure that we're establishing trust, and that transparency has to be clear, because the community has a very good point. Innovation doesn't necessarily equal social good. So we need to make it clear what it does. Next slide. And as we're going to the next slide, I will say the community engagement applied to public interest technology requires that members of the community participate, not talk about it. They have to actually be in the room talking. Next slide.
It's reconnecting, so it's coming. You can go ahead and keep talking.
Oh, no problem. So, okay, so with this in mind, that plot twist, that happened, let's say, early February. And in that, we went around and we talked face to face, because you can't hide behind the email on this. You really do have to pound the pavement to understand. Again, design thinking, you have to be able to understand the user, challenge your assumptions and your bias, and actually create a solution that works. And we actually found that, even though it was a hiccup, even though that, there was a miscommunication, a misstep, it got us on the right path. So, I will keep going. So all of this happens, we're feeling good, that, hey, we have some things that we need to fix, but at least we have some options here. We understand that we're going to have to dive deep, shed our soul. And I swear to goodness, 3 weeks later, COVID hits. So now that's where we say, once again, it's another shift, because with COVID, and still we're still in quarantine, but to understand that we were literally thrown into, again, the digital deep end. So now everything, all of our interactions are virtual. And keep in mind, though, we just realized that what we need to do in order to truly engage and push this movement forward is engaging in the community. Engaging in the community during the big reveal of the digital divide. So you see how all of these things are related? We were actually, again, any chuckle that you feel from me is half just exhaustion and bewilderment to this new reality. I don't say new normal, because to be honest, there was nothing normal about this world before COVID. So what I have realized is that this is an opportunity for us to create our new reality. And that's something that we are pushing through Hack Baltimore. And in this new reality with COVID, we realized that, even though we had established a model that we felt like got us in the right direction, now with us finding ourselves in this digital space where you have medical healthcare providers who are in desperate need of protective equipment. You have people in quarantine, you have parents teaching, trying to find foods and drop-offs. During this time, we need to move quicker. And that's where we were able to pivot from our dubs to more of that rapid response. And I will let Laura take it from there.
Thanks again, Dionne. Clarice, for the last 2 slides, are we going to be able to get those up? I have the ability to share my screen. I think there's some pretty good quotes from some of the rapid response thing. If we could get those up, or should I try to share? Or
Yeah, if you try to share, that'd be great.
Okay. Let's see here.
I am so happy to be surrounded by two amazing tech savvy women. Thank you, Jesus.
So it says my screen sharing is disabled, but you can enable it, Shelley. Oh, no.
I'm like,
Host. I believe the host could enable me. Maybe.
and if not, we can provide the case study to folks to be able to take through. Oh, you got it? Okay, sorry.
Here we go.
I'll get a copy of the case study.
Can everyone see my screen?
I can.
All right. I'm just going to fly down to where we
14.
left off. Oh, no
There
one
you
got to see this slide, but here's our plot suicide of COVID that you spoke to and passed it off to me. And this is why I was hoping to get the last couple of slides up. So yes, so we had spent months as an organization with groups of volunteer civic hackers, design thinkers, technology thinkers. Everyone had worked on the Dubs service, and it just didn't go fast enough. So we had time as a constraint now, and we still wanted to provide service through Hack Baltimore to the community that at this very moment in time needed it very, very much. So with the Dubs at heart, this small group of individuals that came to be volunteering with me at Hack Baltimore, I'm going to give a shout out to Kyle, to Amari, to Bashrat, to Coffee, to Megan, to Maurice, Carrie. I'm going to forget someone, and that's not going to be good, and I'll apologize to you later. But we all really rapidly, very, very fast, came up with a way to do something, to be in service to. First was a small business, Dent. Their business model was based on in-person working with kids after school and over the summer. And now here they are trying to, pivot and still work with the students. And so we worked with them to create a way for them to provide insight into the production, the supply side of PPE, and how it relates to the demand side in the city. And we used a tool for that. And then they needed to visualize how they were going to look at their data and make decisions very fast. So we got that out the door within 10 days. The first release was out the door with that team. And then we also had a client come in that knew that the small businesses in Baltimore did not get that first round of PPP. And so quickly we met with them, discovered what they needed, the technology piece was there and feasibility, and we realized we could quickly get them a website. I think it was done over a weekend, and in time to get that second round of PPP. And within the first 72 hours of that second round of PPP going out, I think they were able to track $5 million of loans and hundreds of applications that the bank said that were qualified just based on following some training that we were able to get up into the form of a website so that that entity could share it out. So, the outcome of this pivot was we had done so much work on creating a service, but we had to use that and do it faster and get something that was still sustainable and used by the community, but that was a smaller version. It wasn't really like Dubs was intended for some long-term, big problem solving. This one was like fast, get it out the door fast. So again, I pivoted with an amazing group of individuals to deliver this, and you can see this quote here kind of expresses the experience of one of the small businesses we worked with. Oh, and I'm the presenter now, so I have to.
Oh, you can keep it on. Actually, Laura, you mind keeping it on there?
Sure.
Okay. That way it gives them time to read that amazing quote. And considering that the next one is just one more slide. It's easier to explain this when you start talking about the use of Airtable and how being able to track inventory and how connecting all the parts within a tech space. What you find is that you have to be able to find the connection of that impact for the community, for them to understand the benefit, right? So when you're able to step back and understand that it was because Dent, who work with, Baltimore inner city youth, were being quarantined, frontline staff were in need of medical equipment, their students are at home, they feel isolated, they feel powerless, they want to be of service. They brought them together. That's a civic hacker. I see two challenges. How can I turn this into an opportunity? And when they start working on this model of having the students make the PPE at home through these kits, get them back, ship them out, and then they receive $1 for every kit. So now that moves from education into workforce development. So again, I can guarantee you that everyone that took part in this initiative started looking at technology and innovation differently. So that's where, for the Civic Hackers Unite, it's this balance of let's do the tech work and make sure people understand how the tech work applies across the board. So if you wouldn't mind, next slide, last slide. So it's the idea of how do we move forward? And again, like I've shared with you, we are still in the process here, and there's not an easy way for you to explore community tech. As much, what I found through research is that when you say the term civic tech, it's more so defined from the standpoint that there are so many innovations and technologies that can be used to benefit the community, right? Civic tech. What I have found, though, the challenge of ensuring and being able to adopt tactics that inform residents of the advantages of them collecting and analyzing data, and what does that offer to their community? How do we actually engage with entrepreneurs and startups and businesses for them to understand, like we said, a lot of these products, a lot of these ideas are hands-on work. That's work that can really be recycled and turned around threefold within our community, which builds our base and supports our economic development. And then the most important part is being able to train the next generation of individuals to understand that to be civil servants, you gotta be data savvy, whether you want to or not. Like I feel like it's one of those like teenagers, whether you want to do it or not, you have to. It's the benefit, right? So during a time right now where cities are really reimagining their reality, you can quote me today, and I have to let you know I'm a bit of an empath, so I say bet on it. As we move forward in this new COVID world, the reality has hit some that we are all connected, right? So in understanding with this health crisis, Laura's health, how she's feeling, actually affects my 3 children. And when you actually understand how people need people and how people actually have the power to stop pointing the finger and pulling the thumb, when you realize that you're in a city with real thought leaders, we will find that not only will we be able to build sustainable solutions, we'll be able to build an economy and a future generation that will build upon that. So, but you cannot do it without both. So with that, I pray that someone has any questions or that we were not rambling, but this was helpful for me.
So I do have 2 questions that have come in. First question, and it's a 2-part question. The first part for you, Dionne, and then the second part for Laura. What was the balance and ratio of non-techies to techies in your organizational composition when you started working within Hack Baltimore?
That's really a great question. I came in, it was already a year in, and because my background is tourism development and community engagement, because personally, the storyteller, your PR person, your marketer, whoever's at the table is responsible for sharing your success, they need to be able to explain it. So that forced the more tech side to have to explain to me. It's almost like Denzel in Philadelphia when he told Tom Hanks, explain this to me as if I was a 3-year-old, right? I will say that when we started, there was definitely more of a tech leaning, but as we progress, we're starting to find balance. What I would like is for there to be a 50-50, right? I'm not sure if we'll 100% get there, but that's the goal, to have an equal representation of Baltimore. But yes, it started off heavy tech, but it is now leaning. We're starting to pull over.
So the second part of that question for Laura, if it was heavy tech in the start, how difficult was it to be able to convince your non-tech people of using technology methods to actually solve their problems?
I would say, like, in my day job, that is what I do for a living, and primarily with government clients, and it is a constant teaching, so I'm used to it. And with Hack Baltimore, the community, the people that we were working with, the non-technical people, when you explain to them the processes that we use and why, like the why we're using them, I didn't find that it was difficult at all. It was just a conversation. It was just a teaching opportunity, a learning opportunity, because when someone that isn't technical shares their perspective on something you're very used to doing day in and day out, it makes you think, oh, well, can I speak about this a little bit differently? Or do I need to add an extra layer into how I deliver this message between the technical work and the civic work? Do I have to add something extra in to make it resonate? So for me, it's been really easy and fun, and I think the team that is volunteering to build out these processes for Hack Baltimore as an entity and deliver them to the community, I've heard them say the same thing. Like, it is really eye-opening how well people are receiving this.
Mm-hmm. Can I, Laura, just to, Laura made a point, and if I could follow up to that first question about having to, in these conversations, you realize adding another layer. And understanding with a case study, let's really be honest here, right? Cybersecurity is a boom. And in Baltimore, we're doing pretty well for ourselves, feeling pretty good. When we did our launch, we understood that during the uprising, that cybersecurity was leveraged in order to, track and to see, who could be potential threats. And some in the community did not take well to that. So there was this immediate, pushback. What I would recommend to anyone that's going along this path, it's actually better for you to work alongside those who are giving you the receipts, the people who have those problems. It's better to work with them, because by the flag being raised, we went back in the shop. Laura actually we did a mock design jam run through, and we purposely took one of the hotbed topics, which is our squeegee boys, our squeegee youth, which are, I don't know if Montgomery has this challenge, but you have people that come in and they do their squeegees in between the streets, and it has caused a big challenge here in Baltimore, and they're predominantly African-American males. The business community, hotel community, downtown community, it's a challenge, right? So we were like, okay, what we realized is that we need to ensure that the facilitators of these conversations actually understand the sensitivity of the tone that you may be faced with. So we invited vocal people to actually take part in the mock design session so that they could give their feedback and get loud. Like, let's really test this model. So in that, we're actually thinking of more ways to include the design thinking model and repurpose it specifically with a community lens. But it has been a very interesting process, but just another reminder that you can't outrun the people that you say you're trying to support.
2 more questions quickly. So on your chart, you talk about using local data to support economic development. Do you all have an open data portal in Baltimore? We have one in Montgomery that features some of our data, but do you have that in Baltimore? And if not, was it easy for you to source the data that you needed in order to work on your community impact initiatives?
Okay, so I'll jump in as the non-tech. So the city backlog that was created is actually for the city. What I can reveal here is that with that coordination, we do have data from certain folks, but what we're working on is making sure that we're connecting the data. So we may have one group that's gone out and they've done a particular study, but then let's say our attractions and tourism have done a completely different one in a different direction. But if we were able to have merged the studies and looked at the questions together, we could have actually made it even greater impact. So that's something that we are working on. But with all that being said, if anyone does have information to share, they are open to sharing it. And that's been the great part about convening these groups, is that by stating that we have this challenge, it's then when people are able to say, well, I've done this is what I can offer to help.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both, Laura and Dionne, for hosting today's session.
Thank you so much.
Definitely appreciate it. And to all of our attendees and participants in today's session, certainly appreciate you sticking with us through any of the technical difficulties that we've had today, but I hope you've enjoyed today's session. Not only was it informative for us to learn more about the community in Baltimore and how they've been able to drive community impact using technology, but also really shouldering the passion of those that have a lot for what they're doing within their city. As we continue this webinar series, next week we'll actually feature a session hosted by MITRE, and we'll talk about innovation in government. That's not only something that Baltimore deals with, it's something that we have in Montgomery, but several other cities across the US are dealing with how do they innovate within traditional government environments. So please join us next week. Thanks again to our presenters, Hack Baltimore, Dionne, and Laura. And we look forward to you guys registering on montgomerychamber.com/events. Have a great day, a wonderful weekend, and please stay safe.